Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back with you for the 220th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We have a full house and a packed agenda. We have a lot of stuff, amazing stuff to talk about. You couldn't have made this stuff up if you just said a year ago, describe what's happening now. Nobody would have believed it, but here we are. We got the great Steve Caruso running the show here with Mike Hirsch, and we want to start. We want to show everybody how nonpartisan we are. We want to start with a quote from the guy in the White House who welcomed the Los Angeles Dodgers very much over the wishes of Dorothy Reik. I don't blame her. To the White House, Nancy NIPARKO, you are a doctor specializing in mental issues. Would you like to read the quote from Donald Trump as what he said to the Dodgers, please?
I'd love to. When you ran out of healthy arms, you ran out of really healthy. They had great arms, but they ran out. It's called sports. It's called baseball in particular. And pitchers, I guess, you could say in really particular.
Thank you, Dorothy. Have you been drinking or smoking, or is that a verbatim quote there?
My name's Nancy.
Dr. Nancy.
No, I'm just following a crazy man.
Okay, so what would be your prognosis as a medical doctor for someone who said that to the world champion baseball team?
I think we should order him a dementia test.
Okay, we'll take that. We'll advise his advisors that that's what's upcoming. I do want to welcome. We have the first hour. We're going to cover a whole ton of different issues. Second hour, which will be a separate show, we will. MYLA has put it back up there. We're going to try and not run out of healthy arms today, but I do want to welcome Jerry Ashton. I was at an event. Dr. Nancy and I were at an event with Jerry yesterday. Jerry runs a group that is funding the medical debt for veterans. Had a beautiful presentation from a vet at this event. And Jerry, I want to start with good news briefly. You told us at this event that you have now retired how much medical debt for veterans? Jerry Ashton, can you jump in and tell us? Are you there? Well, maybe I don't see Jerry Ashton here. When he turns up, we'll let him give us.
Here I am.
Jerry, tell us, please. Tell us the name of your organization, and then you gave us a stunning number at yesterday's event. Tell us how much medical debt that you have retired for veterans.
Well, the name of the organization I co-founded in 2014 is called End Veteran Debt. Oh, excuse me, RIP Medical Debt. And in the 10 years, now it's 11 years, of going out and raising money and going to the debt market and buying medical debt for pennies on a dollar, we've abolished $45 billion worth of medical debt for over 4 million Americans.
Wow. Repeat that, please.
$35 billion in medical debt across the U.S. And now I've moved into doing this similar impact for veterans. Thank you.
And how much debt have you retired? Oh, we lost you. Repeat the number. How much medical debt have you retired?
Okay, let me unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes. How much medical debt have you retired?
I need to be corrected. 15 plus $45 billion.
That's with a B.
With a B.
And how many people have you lifted the medical debt off their backs?
Between 4 and 5 million Americans.
There you go. Jerry, you're a hero. I'll put you in the chat, please, how people can contact your organization. I will see you in New York in May, and it was a pleasure to be with you yesterday, and we really appreciate your work.
Thank you. The organization that I co-founded is RIP Medical Debt, now called Undo, but what I really want people to pay attention to is my newest charity called End Veteran Debt. That's endveterandebt.org. I'll put the details in chat. And we're going to have for veterans a way to reintegrate into society and reduce their suicide rate by ending their debt.
Thank you much. You're a lifesaver. We appreciate your work, Jerry Ashton. People look for his organization. It is a place where you can make a tangible difference. And Nancy and I were very moved by your presentation yesterday, as we were by the chocolate birthday cake. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And by the way, you'll be glad to know that I took a giant chunk of that great chocolate cake and I gave it to a homeless guy as I was hitting the freeway. And I'm sure it made his day, if not his week. So thank you very much. Okay, now from the other side of the spectrum, from the not so good news, but an incredible fight, we have our poet laureate Mimi Garman with us, who's in Portland, Oregon, who has an incredible story to tell us. I couldn't make this one up, although, this kind of stuff is becoming more and more credible. We have 72 people with us. We are live on YouTube. We will be broadcast at Progressive Radio Network and also on the Pacifica Radio Network. Mimi, and then for Mimi, we're going to talk about the rallies. We have Lee Felsenstein with us to talk about a follow-up to the giant rallies over the weekend with AOC and Bernie. Bernie also, I think, fulfilled his lifetime rock and roll dream by going to Coachella. But millions and millions of people came out over the weekend, and we want to talk with Lee and everybody else about what happens next. But Mimi, you have a story to tell that is beyond the pale, about to become global news. So tell us the story of the mayor who. Well, I'll let you tell it. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so some of us on this program might remember Heidi. Heidi's full name is Heidi Strange Sky Lambert, and she is originally from Tri-Cities, where Hanford is, and her father, and the Columbia Generating Station, which also has a huge crack through it. We never talk about that. But Heidi's entire family was part of the nuclear world. Her father was a nuclear engineer, and her entire family has died of cancer. Yeah. In the meantime, Heidi became an activist, and I met her during Occupy Portland years ago. And then we founded together No Nukes Northwest and had the first and only protest ever on Hanford's grounds, in the grounds of CGS with,
CGS is Columbia Generating Station, and it's the last of the 5 whoops atomic reactors, and it's still unfortunately operating. Go ahead.
So time has gone on since Occupy, since our rallies at Hanford, since everything we've since learned and also taught each other. And Heidi, this past year, was asked by some progressive elderly women in the small ocean town of Walport in Oregon to run against a bully for the role of mayor. And she won. And there was like no money involved. She just was like, people knew her. Heidi cared about food for kids. And Heidi had a job where she was teaching cops in Portland all about ethics and all kinds of things, Anyway, she becomes the mayor of Walport. And the bully she was running against, who was the city manager, is still there. His name is Dan something. I can't remember his last name. And Dan decided that he didn't like Heidi. And Heidi ousted the incumbent who had been there for decades. And so what they did was they said that Heidi had done something illegal in looking at emails, wanting to look at emails that were critical of Dan, the bully, that were sent to her, to Heidi. And the city manager, the bully, his office refused to let Heidi, the mayor, see the complaints. There were 13 of them written specifically to Heidi about this. So Heidi went in and said, wait a minute, where are they? Well, Dan told us that only Dan can see the complaints. So Heidi said, no. And they made up a whole story that she was aggressive, and Heidi's just the most peaceful person I've ever met, that she was aggressive, that she had people scared. And the city council decided and Dan decided that they were going to vote her out behind closed doors. And Heidi said, oh no, we're doing this transparently. If you're going to vote me out, First of all, that's not a thing. And if you're going to do this not a thing, then we need to do it in public at the city council session. So all of the members of city council voted out the mayor. See, it was like 6-0. You're out. Well, the whole thing was illegal. So Heidi heard about a lawyer who had just won in the Oregon Supreme Court a similar case in Corvallis, Oregon. And he won millions of dollars, which the person from city council in Corvallis ended up just giving to the lawyer to use for cases like this. So Heidi is my current hero, and she's going to come on the show on May 5th to talk about what it is like to be someone who just wants to help people who get ousted illegally from being the mayor. And by the way, she's still continuing to keep her chair. She was arrested yesterday or on Friday. They told her, if you come in, you will be arrested. And she was with like 50 followers. And again, 50 followers, everybody was over age 60. You know, this is like this beautiful thing happening, all older protesters. They go in, and the lawyer said, you have to resume, you have to take your chair. Just go in and take your chair. She goes in, there's no chair. They took her chair away. She said, does anyone have a chair I can use? And a woman who had a walker came up with her chair and gave it to Heidi, at which point Heidi sat down as the mayor, and the sheriff came and said, we have to arrest you for civil disobedience.
Did they also arrest the chair?
No.
Okay.
So anyway, this is an ongoing story and legal battle. And it's just more of the same that's happening across the states. And now today it made the UK news. So it will be a watched case in what people, again, not naming parties, are trying to do to people in charge who are them.
Well, this is pretty mind-boggling. If you'll put her name in the chat, any kind of news links that you have, that would be great. Sure. It's Heidi. And I will say there's also a very impactful similar fight happening in North Carolina.
Heidi's here. I'm sorry. Heidi is with us.
Let's see. Heidi, come on. Come on and say hi, please. And there is a similar fight. Oh, there we go. Oh, my God. Well, Heidi, you look really terrifying. I see why the mayor, the former mayor, Dan, is so afraid of you. Pretty clear. I mean, all those rocks you were throwing. So this is the mayor of what's the name of the town? Walport, Oregon, yes. Who's arrested for asserting her legal right to be mayor. Is that right?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, Heidi. Pretty amazing. Again, I mean, these guys must be cowering in terror of you.
I mean, that's what they're saying. It's hard to believe because, as Mimi was saying, we grew up doing civil disobedience against, nuclear powers. And so it's hard to believe that going to get my mail was a crime. And it's also hard to believe that being mayor and asking for my seat is a crime that I would be arrested for. But yeah, I was arrested for my first time in my life last Thursday at 53 years old. For insisting that I keep the seat the voters put me in.
What was the vote count that you won by?
Oh gosh, I'm a little town of 2,000. I don't know what the exact quote was, but I know it was like 67% or 70% that I won by.
Oh God, amazing! And are they talking about sending you to El Salvador?
I mean, I bet they wish they could right now. I think that the irony here was that my profession, like Mimi mentioned, is to teach police officers trauma-informed care and de-escalation tactic. So I've worked with the sheriff's department for 10 years. So of course they didn't want to arrest me, and then they were asking me to please not be arrested. But I had to assert my seat. So we were both in a place where we both had to do our jobs. So we just respected one another and did it kindly.
Unbelievable. Did they hold you in jail, or what happened?
No, because they're trauma informed, they gave me choices. And one of the choices was not to detain me. One of the choices was to let me go back into City Hall as long as I promised not to disrupt anymore. And luckily,
as long as you promised not to be mayor, as you were elected to be.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable. That's really amazing. Well, Heidi, is there anything you want to tell us? You want to post links or anything before we move to North Carolina?
No, I already shared some in the chat, and Harvey, I look forward to talking to you May 5th. I hope we can get more information and share more
Okay.
about.
Yes, everyone, we will reconvene May 5th. The next 2 weeks, we're not going to meet, but we will meet on May 5th, and Heidi will come back. And Heidi, you're going to come in with your rock band, is that right?
Yeah, I
So,
guess so.
okay.
Thanks,
Carla
Harvey.
Sand in Minnesota wants to say a word to you. Anybody else? Dorothy Reik, if you want to jump in on this, go ahead, Carla.
If I may, I'd like to go back to the gentleman who was talking about the medical debt. I know you don't want to hear it, but Minnesota has a piece of legislation on that to raise $1 million from our legislature to save 4 million, and it's not happening. I want to ask that gentleman if that's the way that places are doing it, or if he has other ideas. He can answer me in the chat. If you
Yes,
want to talk
please,
about
Carla,
protests,
and send Jerry and me an email, and I'll have you directly in touch with him. Okay. Anybody else want to get in touch with Jerry Ashton about the medical debt? Please do. But Carla, Jerry's right now in California, but he's in New York, in New England, or in the East. And Carla, you're in Minnesota. So I hadn't heard about this. We can deal with this later. Okay.
And
But
yeah,
Jerry,
keep going with protests. We got $1 million of them all over. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you. Okay.
thanks, Carla. Jerry's ready to give a quick answer.
Jerry, go ahead.
Am I? Here I am.
No. Okay.
The quick answer, I needed to understand precisely that question. What state?
She's
It's
saying
in Minnesota.
Minnesota.
So if you'll directly correspond with Carla, that would be great.
Okay.
Well, real quickly, Jerry, you're doing things your way, not relying on legislation, as far as I know, not relying on any government funding. This is all private initiatives. So what Carla was talking about is a legislative effort in the state of Minnesota. And according to Carla, it isn't getting done the way it should. So Jerry's doing it without worrying about any red tape or any politicians getting in the way.
Well, actually, I'm quite familiar with that. The way that a charity is able to work is it goes directly to a hospital. It doesn't go through the government. It goes to the hospital and arranges to buy their uncollectible debt for pennies on the dollar. And then once the debt is in the possession of my charity, we forgive it with no tax consequences to the recipient. Now, a lot of states have already done this. If you Google either undue medical debt, UNDUE, or you Google Jerry Ashton and debt, there'll be a lot of stories that will pop up. A lot of different states, a lot of different municipalities are taking it on their own to go directly to. Yeah, that's our website right there.
Okay. Wonderful. Excellent.
But I put my phone number and email in chat right now. I'm happy to talk to anybody. And once again, I got to pitch veteran debt. Veterans are burdened by more debt than medical, and even medical debt they're subjected to. So I want to stop that. I want to do the same thing for veterans that we're doing for the regular population. Thank you.
Right. And the fellow you had speak to us was wounded and had a lot of shrapnel in his body. When he was in the military, they paid for his medical care or treated him, but now he's out of the military and still has the shrapnel in his body. They don't want to pay for his medical care. It's outrageous. So Jerry, you'll come back, and Carla, we will deal with that. But do be directly in touch with Jerry, and then May 5th we can have you both present, and we can deal with this in greater depth. Okay, so back to Walport. There's a major court case now in North Carolina where a liberal woman, a Democrat, has been elected to the Supreme Court, and the Republican, the right wing, I don't know if they're set non-partisan elections in North Carolina, but has tried to grab back tens of thousands of votes in this North Carolina election to deny her a seat on the North Carolina Supreme Court, which would then allow the gerrymandering to continue in North Carolina and could, in fact, affect the congressional race and the control of the Congress in 2026 and 28. And this is unprecedented. No one has ever tried to claw back votes that was counted. And ironically, as per Jerry's focus on veteran debt, they're going after votes of people in the military. Some, I think, 3,000 military votes. The right-wing candidate is trying to have them disqualified, and she won by less than 1,000 votes, and it's within his grasp to turn back the election and give him the spare seat on the North Carolina Supreme Court. This is a very big deal. This has never happened before that we know of in a state Supreme Court race. So here we have a mayor who's duly elected in an American town that they want to throw out for being uppity, I guess, or being female. I guess she'd be guilty of being mayor while female, and now we have a similar situation with a female candidate for the Supreme Court in North Carolina, both of which have major implications. I mean, if they can claw back a duly elected mayor in an American town and a duly elected Supreme Court justice in the state of North Carolina, this is more of what we're seeing nationwide. I'm tempted to read again the quote from Donald Trump in front of the Dodgers, but we won't go there. So this is a very big deal. And thank you, Heidi and Mimi, for coming on with us. Thank you, Jerry and Carla. And thank you, Dorothy Reich, for raising your objection to the Dodgers going to see Trump. And we're going to move ahead. If anybody has something to say real quick, please do. Steve Caruso. And then we're going to talk about the rallies. And we have Lee with us to talk about that. Go ahead.
The mayor's got some competition here. I'll show you a picture real quick. We have also David Brown with us, who would speak on the separation of church and state. His podcast is Unreasonable. I'll try to put the link in the chat here. I can't remember if it's .org or .com. I think it's .org. But there's a competition there. You got to give these guys some Teslas, get them on your side, right? Not really. Sorry. Okay, I'll move on.
So he gave Elon Musk donated 30 Teslas, only 25 of which blew up and spread lithium all over the place. But that's another story. There's an interesting chat online. You can look it up about Elon Musk's family background. His grandparents were apparently Canadian, and they moved to South Africa because they felt more comfortable in a country with apartheid. So we can maybe find that before the end of the hour. But okay, Dorothy, you're still with us. I share your antipathy for the Dodgers having gone to see Trump. But at least we came out of it with that memorable quote from him, which I think he wants to carve into Mount Rushmore. But we'll talk about that again. We want to go now. How many of you, raise your hand if you want to briefly report on the rallies that were held over the weekend? As best I can tell, there were many millions. The Dodgers, that's good. John Hayes, Dogers. And I want to talk about that in a minute. Are they raising efficiency, or are they just looting and preparing for a fascist coup? But let's talk about these rallies. Go ahead, MYLA, and then we'll get to Lee Felsenstein. Go ahead, MYLA.
Thank you, Harvey. I did go to the rally in LA on Saturday, but I have another Donald Trump quote from today.
Let's hear it.
Meeting with Bukele, Timothy Snyder reported, and then
Bukele is the right-wing dictator of El Salvador. But go ahead.
That's right, and Trump hosted him in the White House today and told Bukele that he wanted 5 new prisons in El Salvador to send the homegrown, and he is referring to people who were born in this country as homegrowns, that he wants Bukele to have accommodations
So we'll have 5 Guantanamos in El Salvador. I believe there was a piece out that with Eric Prince, the guy from Blackwater. What's the name of that fascist?
Right.
Anyway, and they want to have a contract to start sending homegrown American citizens, with Blackwater doing, I guess, the arresting and the shipping to prisons in El Salvador. Is that right?
Correct. Make room for the homegrowns.
Right. And people in the audience, when Trump said that in the White House, laughed and thought it was funny. So, my grandparents were immigrants. They came from Latvia and Lithuania through New York Harbor around 1900. My parents were born in Boston, as was I, but apparently that won't be enough. And certainly Trump has made very clear moves to end native citizenship. People who are born in the United States, as per the original Constitution, are already citizens, but apparently that he wants to change that. And I guess his modus then will be to have Blackwater ferry them down to prisons in El Salvador. The idea was, I believe, as laid out by Eric Prince, I may be wrong, but was that the United States would fund the construction of the prisons in El Salvador, turn them over to El Salvador and lease them from El Salvador and let the Salvadorians run the prisons in El Salvador to imprison American citizens. Do I have that right? I think that's accurate.
Sorry, yes, you have it right.
Okay, everybody. Well, on that happy note, we will thank you for that, MYLA. We will turn to Lee Felsenstein and the rallies. Now, you
I thought you were going to talk to me.
Okay, yes. Who's that?
Dorothy. You won't let me turn my video on. But I have a major problem here. Mike, maybe you can help me. I turned the sound off on my computer, but this is coming through so loud. I can't function here.
Dorothy, we were going to talk to you about the energy bill in the second hour. Do you want to do that?
I can't stay on the meeting if I can't figure out how to turn the sound down. I don't understand. My computer sound is off. So I don't know where the sound is coming from that's so loud.
It's got to be your computer somewhere, Dorothy, because we don't have the capacity to do that without some kind of a computer or phone or tablet on your end.
We'll have another monitor.
Look for the thing that says the megaphone with the.
I turned it off. It's off. Megaphone is off. So weird.
Well, let's keep going here and let's see if we can come to you.
So, and I can't turn my picture on either.
Well, you know what? Turn off the computer. Come back in 20 minutes.
I was also at the protest at the Bernie thing, which was.
And how was it?
It was amazing. There were so many people. I was luckily in the VIP section, so I could sit down because people were 3 people fainted.
Really? Did they faint from seeing Neil Young, or was it from other concerts?
It went on from 9:30 in the morning until 3 o'clock, and people
did you talk
at 3 that time? Alan Mintz, I didn't get to talk to anybody. I was, it was a big, tall stage. There was stuff going on all the time. Neil Young was great. Joan Baez made me cry when she sang Imagine. And AOC was fantastic. And Bernie, of course, was fantastic. And there were at least 60,000 people. They were way off on their count because they only counted people they admitted. But there were just streets full, half a mile of people that didn't even get in because they didn't get there in time.
Wow.
It was filled up.
But, here's the question I have for Lee Felsenstein, who's with us. And for everybody.
Went to Coachella after.
Yes, Bernie went to Coachella. That's right.
He went to Utah. He had 20,000 people in Utah.
Bernie played. Oh yeah, and AOC went to Utah. We have 94 people with us, by the way. Bernie, I think, played lead guitar for the Grateful Dead while he was at Coachella. Is that right? No, sorry, bad. Oh, he would have played for Fish. Fish is a Vermont band, and he would have had his Ben and Jerry's. But here's the question for you, Dorothy, for everybody who was there. I know, Dr. Nancy, you were at the rally. What happens next? Lee Felsenstein has offered us the shell, the framework for following up electronically with all those people. But Did everybody just millions nationwide? Did everybody just show up for these rallies and then go home? What's the follow up? Lee, do
I
you want to
believe-
talk? Or Dorothy, go ahead, and then Lee.
I believe that Bernie has a lot of people registered for these rallies, and they have their names. They're of course encouraging people to bring materials to these rallies and recruit people for their particular issue, and try to organize at the rally and get people to get more involved. And he said that over and over, that you have to organize locally, that you have to talk to your neighbors, that you can't just go home and think about this. You have to get out in the streets. You have to get out and meet people and talk about it. And hopefully that's what people are going to do. I mean, I talk to everybody. So I call some customer service number. I talk to the person who's on the customer service number. I do. And I tell them they need to look for the hands-off rally in their zip code. I tell everybody I talk to anywhere, everywhere, I tell them that they need to get themselves involved, because we're going into a fascist regime, and they're beginning to see it, because if they can snatch people off the streets and send them to some hellhole in El Salvador. Nobody has ever come out of that place in El Salvador. It's pretty new, but no one's come out. So we have no idea what goes on there. You saw the pictures, 80 people in a cell, 4 tiers of metal, just benches up in the sky there. No mattresses, no pillows, no blankets, no nothing. They're just there like caged birds or something up in the air. I don't know how they feed them or let them go to the bathroom or anything. They're just 80 people to a cell in there.
My God. Okay, so Lee Felsenstein has a follow-up called Reverse the Media. Steve just flashed it on the screen. Lee and Dorothy, please stay with us, and Dr. Nancy, everybody else. Lee, do you want to tell us what your ideas are here on following up with these rallies so that people's names and contacts are part of the mix?
Okay. Yeah, I heard the news this morning about El Salvador, and it's like, it's never been this bad in my experience. Got to do. The write-up I did describes how it would work with working with groups that are involved in rallies, involved in organizing them. And it's pretty simple. They can actually create the QR codes themselves on Office software and print them up as business cards. What I'm suggesting is that we create somebody, and it isn't going to be me, create an organization. It won't have to be very big, probably less than 10 people, that supports this particular activity, because everybody is going to, need to be told how to do it and need to have their hands held. But once they do it, they can keep doing it. So that a rally, they can hand out business card size cards with a prominent QR code on it, and whatever message they additionally want to put on. It's their decision. As we've learned here in earlier meetings, the business card size tends to survive where leaflets do not, and be passed around. And the point of it is that we don't control what the website says that the QR code points to. So we have to be able to help these groups who have never done this before get a website set up, put the questions they want to have on the website, the questionnaire they want to have, and handle it. You have to be able to get the data off of the website. It has to be in a format that will create a spreadsheet. It's called Common Delimited Format. So there's a little bit of technical help that has to go on with most of the people who are doing this. We need a group that does this. We need to have somebody who knows how to organize a small to medium-sized group of people. It means recruitment. It means following up on their quality of their operation. And also, those people have to be able to reach out to the rallying groups. It's no good if you just sit here saying, well, they aren't coming to us. You have to go to them and perform the assistance to get them to get their website up, get their questionnaire put together, and get them familiar with how to get the data off of the questionnaire, as should run a test run on it. And this needs to be available like nationwide. I'm not sure just how big this has to be in terms of people, but it can be replicated. There's a level of organization above that if that's what is going on. So I can design this stuff, and I've done it, but I can't implement it. I'm not good at recruitment. I don't have the contacts to the organization. So that's where we got to try to find who's in touch with the various rallying organizations or can be in touch with. So there's a program that has to be put into place to do that.
Well, maybe this is something for PDA. Mike Hirsch, what do you think? And what?
Definitely a very good idea. We generally walk around with clipboards, but this is a little bit more 21st century.
Well, and as we've mentioned, clipboards, when it comes to transcribing email addresses, very difficult. I mean, I've done that with clipboards, and it is extremely time consuming and also not always accurate.
You're right, Sluggo. If you're off just by one little character,
right,
it's worthless. You send it to the wrong
I would
person.
say there was a 25% failure rate in the clipboards that I used, and the failure rate is itself labor intensive. So Lee, let's do up a memo. Maybe Mike, if PDA wants to jump on this, if you did send Lee your reverse the media memo there, we can spread that around. Also, one thing very quickly, people who print up business cards, and that's a good point, by the way, business cards are ecologically and logistically much superior to leaflets. They have to have a union label on them. We just ran into a kerfuffle with a leaflet from Pacifica, so let's just put that in the hopper. But Mike, maybe this is something we can pick up with Lee and produce a protocol that certainly PDA would seem a logical candidate. Anyway,
definitely.
Okay.
Well, Mike, message me.
I'll put the three of us will be together with an email, Lee, and move ahead. We'll get to Alan Minsky and Mike. This is great. Thank you very much. And thank you, Lee. Got to remember, Lee is a godfather of Silicon Valley here. So we're not exactly a potted plant. Nicole Ung, do you want to jump in?
I would like to make a little contribution. It's possible to have like a Google Doc, where people you have several portable computer, that have the internet, and then you can sign them in as they walk in or something.
That's a good idea. I think it also could be done. But you look at a rally like the one I saw the aerial photos of the one in LA. It would be hard to know where to set up. And I do think that the Bernie AOC contingent, they asked for RSVPs. Is that correct? Somebody know that? Dorothy?
Yes. This is MYLA, and I did RSVP, and I think that that's the way that they basically know the number of people who attend too. That helps them.
Well, what percentage of the attendees of the rallies do you think RSVP? In other words, you had like 60,000 people there in LA.
They have a count of 36. They said they have 36,000 people came. That's their count.
That RSVP'd.
I don't know if those are people who RSVP'd or those are people who went through some, I went through a different entrance, so I don't know what. Milo, did you go through the general entrance?
No, I went through the same one you did, way in the back, so we didn't have to wait in line.
You went through the Broadway exit entrance there?
At any rate, we went through I believe the same one that you did, but you didn't have to prove that you had RSVP'd.
The one I went to, you had to prove that someone put you on a list to go in. So I don't think you were in the general.
I had a special badge that they allowed. Anyway, I know what you.
Everybody in LA knows you anyway, Dorothy. So it's. But well, this is okay, Lee. This is really good. Getting through with PDA would be a huge step forward in all this. If anybody could organize this, it would be PDA. And you got Mike Hirsch here. So we will pursue this. Anybody with other ideas? Nicole, yours was a good one. Go ahead, Nicole, again, and then we'll go to Steve Caruso.
Yes, every time I sign up for Mobilize, they already have a feedback where they ask me how it went, whether I attended or not. But the feedback doesn't ask me if I brought several people with me or not. So they should, if you use Mobilize, to make your announce, they have automatic feedback.
Okay, that's good. That's good. And you would want to include the contacts of the people you brought. So, that
Yeah,
goes
that would help. Yeah.
Okay. Steve Caruso, go ahead.
Yeah, the some recent rally nearby had a
You're
list
talking
of
about
six,
Columbus?
not in the rural
Oh,
outskirts.
okay. All right.
6 people showing up for the rally. You get there, there's like 600. So, all these things people have been doing all along. That's why you have indivisible. That's why you have, and you want to have a unified purpose. And I think just the fact that people are working on that and they're aware that it's not like everybody's so scattered. We're all focused.
Yeah.
So,
Well, but we weren't after 2016. We had these giant rallies, and then poof, everybody was gone. So two major
well,
hints that come out of this already are: one, do business cards, not flyers, and two, have a union label on those business cards. That's essential. So,
we do have a rally Saturday. There's a rally the 19th. Okay, this is another 50501 rally, and people are worried about going to Posse Comitatus and that whole thing. So we still have David Brown here. I don't know if you got time for David.
Yes, we
speaking out
do.
against church and state.
We'll give him a couple minutes. Dorothy's got her hand up. Dorothy, are you good? And where's David Brown? He should unmute.
I would, while these rallies are all great, we have to start concentrating on something called a general strike. Because if too many of us get out in the streets, I fear that they will call it insurrection, and he's already got generals in place who will do his bidding, and we're going to be in a world of hurt. So I think that we really need to start thinking about shutting down the country, nobody going to work one Friday, see what happens. If not, Thursday and Friday, we have to start planning for that, because that's what we're going to have to do. We're not going to be able to all take to the streets because they've got the guns and we don't.
Okay.
But they're doing snatching people off the street for nothing.
Right. And
Ideas.
they'll soon be sending.
Don't have any bad ideas, anybody. Just don't. I mean, you're jeopardizing yourself.
More prisons in El Salvador. That's for us. That's for the people in the streets. So we need to stay off the streets and stay out of work and shut these guys down and make sure the billionaires are feeling the pain.
Thank God they can't read our minds. David Brown, you want to chime in here?
Okay, so before we go to David, okay, let's. Does anyone else have anything on this? Hi, David. How you doing?
Well, thank you.
Well, you've brought the average age of the call down by at least 10 years here. But I think Alex Williams and then Paul Newman, and then we'll go to you, David. It's 2:48. We have 93 people. Go ahead, Alex, very quickly, then Paul Newman, and then we'll go to you, David. Alex Williams, you got to unmute, and then Paul Newman, you got to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex, real quick, please.
What Dorothy just said, I think she's right. And I don't know, maybe we just got to get excited about people, but I think we have to communicate that this is going to take pain. Pain either being in the streets and possibly getting our heads bashed in, or pain from staying out of work and not getting a paycheck. But one thing or the other, it's coming to the point where it's going to take some kind of pain. There's no more easy. We passed the easy with the elections. I mean, maybe we can get it back with the next election in 2026. But yeah, that's and I think there's a lot of people that are just scared or just they haven't had enough pain yet to really, but it's good to see people more turning out, I plan.
Yeah.
Oh, this one last thing I got to say, and this has been really under my skin, so I got to get it off. There's been like this movement to convince Black people to not show up at these rallies, to not participate, particularly women. And I think that's highly divisive because, and the thing is, well, we've done our part and we're more likely to be arrested. And I get all that, but I think the ancestors will be turning over to their grave. John Lewis was afraid of getting arrested. I mean.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean that we can't be split up, with stuff like that.
Alex,
I agree.
Alex, what do you think we can do about that?
Huh?
What do you think we can do about that? The rumor mongering and whatever to discourage people from participating.
Well, I know in the African American community, we just got to remind them of. I think we just got to remind them of the ancestors, and a lot of young people too. They're like, I'm not going to be scared into like staying home, and especially, and you guys know that a lot of times youth are the ones that lead these movements. I mean, I was listening to Charlene Hunter Galt, and she said that her parents and a lot of their parents were more afraid of them stepping out and doing stuff because they have mortgages and stuff like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we
Very
definitely
good.
we definitely need to unite this movement. We can't have people boycotting each other's rallies
Right.
and events. We need to boycott the right wingers. And like if I can say, I do agree with Dorothy that we should start striking and boycotting. And somebody mentioned that the progressive movement won't unite. Well, probably not right away, but this is a movement that can keep growing.
Right. Okay, Paul. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Mike. Paul Newman, go ahead, and then we're going to go to David Brown.
Okay, thank you. I'll make it 2 minutes. But basically I like Dorothy's idea of a general strike. The problem is this country is so hypnotized with television, Netflix, social media. There's got to be another way. Korea had a general strike against their president, or not a general strike, but the president declared a martial law and they were able to push him out. How did they do that? That's the first question. And can we do it here in this country? Secondly,
the army didn't support him. Our army will support Trump.
Let me do my 2 minutes. Okay. Secondly, because I want David to speak too. But thank you, Dorothy. I appreciate that. Anyway, but the second thing that's important is that we got to find a weakness that they have. And I think the media can be a big one if we use it right. It's social media, because as a TikToker, I get a lot of stuff, and some of these people get banned and then they come back and they're speaking out like crazy. And there's a lot, we have a lot to fear, except fear itself, according to Roosevelt. But
times were different then.
Yeah, but when was the last time there was a real general strike that worked?
Seattle, 1919. Oh,
Right.
I think it was one in the 30s, actually.
But it's to mobilize all these people now with all these diversions, we got to work with what is diverting them to bring them in. And that's what I think we need to do. And we also need to see how other countries do it, how they fight their fascists. My father was a member of the OSS during World War II. He interrogated Nazis. And OSS at that time was the predecessor of the CIA. However, they were anti-fascist, which I like about it. So we need to create an OSS.
Ooh, okay. Let's think about that one. But as long as Eleanor Roosevelt is in the White House, we're safe. Thank you, Paul Newman. Okay, David Brown, and then we'll go to David Nader. But go ahead, David Brown, please. Couple minutes.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And Stephen, thank you for proposing that I come and speak. I will be brief. We're shifting gears yet again because my focus is church-state separation. I am the chair of the Secular Democrats of Pennsylvania. I am the former host and producer of the Unreasonable podcast. We did actually sunset our show earlier this year, although I encourage all of you to visit. Yes, thanks for putting it up. The website. Our shows are archived and can be accessed wherever you get your podcasts. We have been tracking for the past couple of years the insidious rise and, sadly, unexpected surge of power of white Christian nationalists with the re-election of Donald Trump. And our focus has been predominantly on how anybody can take action around this issue. Now, Stephen, you reached out to me specifically when Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt issued an executive order prioritizing religious favoritism over constitutional principles. And I've been thinking a lot about Oklahoma for many years now, because Oklahoma is also where Ryan Walters, the state superintendent of schools, issued the Bible mandate. Some of you are aware of this. Pretty vague, not entirely legally clear how this can be enforced, but basically mandating that all teachers in the public school system have to incorporate biblical studies into their curricula. Music is my vocation. I'd love to know how a music teacher does this or a phys ed teacher does this, but this was the mandate from Ryan Walters. And then also Oklahoma, some of you may know, is where the St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School, which would have been, and might still be, the nation's first religious charter school, or state-funded charter school, is or was rejected by the state Supreme Court, but is now being appealed to the Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court, at the end of this month. So there's a lot going on in Oklahoma, but I think what I'd really love to, and I said I'd be brief, so I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing here in Pennsylvania, and I'm actually very grateful to see my dear friend Matt Muncy here, because Matt is one of the founding members of the Pennsylvania Secular Democrats. We took a look at what happened in 2024. And we are not an official subsidiary of the State Democratic Party. We are partners of the party, which gives us a little bit of autonomy to behave differently. When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And I'm a grassroots organizer, a political organizer. I've worked on campaigns, managed campaigns. You had me on your show when I was running for office, for state representative a couple of years ago. And so what I'm trying to do right now is to reimagine the way that we talk to voters. How do we proliferate a better message, a message of service, and to be emissaries of information rather than parachuting into swing districts and turnout districts when we need volunteers, votes, money. It's extremely opportunistic politics. It clearly doesn't work. Donald Trump was not historically popular last year. It's just that Democrats were historically unpopular. So we're trying to shift that while also trying to shift the narrative on secularism, non-belief. So this is generally our focus. Yeah,
all right.
Sorry.
That's so good. Very good. Thank you, David. And I must say you have a great radio voice. So
thank you.
I hope you do it. Okay, we have David Nader. Stay with us, please. And Dorothy Reik. Stay with us, David. David Nader, go ahead. Oh, you're on. You got to unmute here. And Dorothy, let's unmute you in advance.
Okay.
Go ahead, David Nader, real quick, please.
All right, you can hear me now, huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. I certainly like the concept of a general strike and boycotting, and I don't know if this might be complimentary, but I do know that most of us pay utility bills and most of us have some kind of charge plate. Now, you have to pay those, of course, or you'll get shut off. But there's a grace period, and you can stop paying for a while until they threaten to shut you off. If people en masse stop the cash flow for periods of time, particularly in this random way, with large amounts of people being only 20%, 30% of the population, that may have an economic impact. And it seems to me as though it's money that, as they say, doesn't talk, it screams. So I'm just putting that out as a possibility.
Well, thank you for that, David. And just one note, money does scream. The quote from Bob Dylan is that money doesn't talk, it swears. But that's screaming is also known to happen by money. Thank you for that, David. Dorothy, go ahead, Dorothy Reik. Anybody else? And then we're going to get into the top of the hour. And I'll end this hour with Dorothy, and then we'll move into new territory. Go ahead, Dorothy.
They say that it takes only 3.5% of the population for a revolution. So we should be able to get 3.5. What's 3.5% of 300 million?
About
10 million.
10, 20 million in that range.
That's what we need on our side, and then it's over for.
Okay.
That's a goal that seems attainable to me.
But what are the 3.5% do? What are the 3.5% do to end this regime? That's the question.
3.5% of the population, resisting.
Okay, and Lee Felsenstein has given us some tools in the electronic world. We're just going to have to see. Absolutely, Dr. Nancy, and I want to. Wait 1 second. We're at the top of the hour. I want to thank everybody for listening here on, and Steve, if you want to break it, at Progressive Radio Network and Pacifica, our other radio, WGRN, our other radio outlets, and we'll see you next week. And we're going to resume now with a second hour. Steve, I don't know, do you need me to stop talking to break here?
You're fine.
Okay, let's call on Nancy NIPARKO. Dr. Nancy, who started the show with a mental analysis of the guy in the White House. Do you want to continue on with that? And then we're going to move into the energy issue. And Dorothy Reik has something to report on that. But go ahead, Ruth. I'm sorry.
Yes, I just don't want people to get discouraged. I think that the numbers out there at these rallies are inspiring and they're making a statement. And all we need to do is wake up all these young people who came up with their own reasons not to vote this last time. If we can get those people out to vote by all this excitement, that's great. But I also want to say today we can boycott Amazon. We can boycott Whole Foods. We cannot buy a Tesla. Okay, I don't think anyone's buying a Tesla right
I
now.
will not be buying a Tesla today.
Right. But these Amazon trucks are all over the place. We could really make a dent, just like when the grape growers, we boycotted that successfully a long time ago. And I think you pick a low-hanging fruit and we're making a difference. But we are not only boycotting the current regime, we are boycotting the far right, the corporate Democrats, and that we need to open their eyes and bring them in too. And so every little bit we can do, I think, is helpful.
I agree, and I just want to say, by way of introduction, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman. We're on the 221st Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. You're with us. Progressive Radio Network, Pacifica Radio Network, many other outlets. Our engineer Steve Caruso and co-host Mike Hirsch. And we're talking now about the political situation in America, and we are also going to be segueing into the energy issues that are surrounding us, especially this assault on basic sanity by trying to revive and spread nuclear power, which is a completely failed, the most expensive failed technology in human history. We've just heard from Dr. Nancy NIPARKO, and we want to hear from another doctor, Dr. Ruth Strauss. Nancy deals with head issues, and Dr. Ruth deals with heart issues, although so does Nancy in her way. And then we'll go to Dorothy Reik, and we're going to segue starting into renewable energy. We're joined by, and nuclear, we're joined by KEVIN KAMPS of the Nuclear Information Resource Service and others with reports on atomic power and the transition to Solartopia. Go ahead, please, Dr. Ruth.
Hi. So I wanted to say two quick things. One is, this is total, excuse me, caca about we can't get this gentleman back from El Salvador. Trump is a thin-skinned little man, petty man, and I can bet you anything that he has made a wink-wink with this guy in El Salvador to not get the person back because he wants to get back at the female judge who ordered him to bring this person home. I mean, that's just the way his personality is. He's just a little vindictive man, with an inferiority complex. Anyway, I am going to call the White House about that, and I hope other people will too. And also, P.S., he fired the man who was responsible for the monoclonal antibody that saved his ass in the hospital when he had COVID. The other thing I wanted to say is that I went with Nancy to see Harvey star role in Far Out. It was one of the best films I've ever seen. And I have to tell you that when I was, going to go there, it's like, well, Harvey's a friend, so I'll go. I have no idea what the hell it's about, except, I use the expression far out, nauseatingly frequently when I was the age that he was in the movie. If you can find it somewhere, and Harvey, tell people where they can find it.
Well, email me.
It was fantastic. And Harvey did not send me any money to say this.
Email me at solartopia@gmail, and I will tell you the movie is called Far Out, Life on and After the Commune, but we refer to it as the naked hippie movie.
It was fantastic.
Thankfully, I'm not naked in this movie, but it's a great documentary of how the organic gardening and no nukes movement started it for a new generation. And there you go. MYLA RESON, thank you, Ruth, for that. MYLA,
I
and
just
then
want
did
to say,
Dorothy have her hand up?
Dorothy's with us too, but that person referred to by Ruth Strauss is Mr. Abrego Garcia. That is the name of the man who has been disappeared and who is now we're told that it's out of our hands, and he's not going to be returned, but we have to keep fighting for his release. Mr.
Outrageous. And he's a father of 3 children, I understand, and never not been accused of any crime whatsoever. And it's basically an act of terror, putting him in a prison in a foreign land without his family, without having committed any crime. He's a union member also, by the way.
I just felt that I had to say his name.
Yes, absolutely. Say his name. And he is, a victim of terror. We're going to segue now into energy issues. Again, we want to recap. Lee Felsenstein in the earlier session talked about using barcodes and what is the QR codes on business cards to pass out at rallies. There is a danger, of course, of having them counterfeited by evildoers, but they also need to have union bugs on them. And we're going to go now into energy issues. We have the great KEVIN KAMPS with us from Michigan, but we have in California. I want to start with Dorothy here. We have a bill now in front of the state legislature to repeal the ban on building new nuclear plants. And then Kevin's going to talk to us about Palisades and the insane idea of restarting shut reactors. But Dorothy, do you want to give us the report on this insane bill on the nuclear technology in California?
No, that's not the bill MYLA told me I was talking to.
Oh, what is it?
It's a bill called SB 540.
And that is?
And that is a bill to have us join a regional grid.
Oh yeah. Okay, go ahead. Tell us about this.
So I spoke to my friend Kevin DeLeon. Yes, he's my friend. And he said that years ago, Jerry Brown tried to do this and he stopped him because this would negate SB 100. He tried to do it again 2 years ago. He stopped them. And now it's reared its ugly head again. And sadly, one of the authors of this bill is our climate hero, Henry Stern. So we cannot figure out what's going on. I just spoke to an ex-employee of his, and he's looking into what in hell happened to Henry. Basically, this bill would give up our autonomy over our energy. So once we sign on to this regional operator grid, we can't ever get out. They can negate everything that we have done to protect our climate, not just limited to SB 100. We have all kinds of rules in place about percentages of non-sourced fuel, so that right now you cannot have more than 10%, say, of coal to fuel our electricity needs. If we sign on to this, it can be 100%. All the rules that and Henry Stern has put all these little caveats and all these little things in this bill that he thinks will stop them from overturning our climate rules. But it's not true. Once we sign on to this grid, we have no control. We're opening the door for Trump. There's 22 coal mines in the states that we're talking about that we would be joining with. And I wish Jennifer Tanner was here to talk to you. I'm not as good at her as she is.
Well, we'll have her back in 3 weeks in May. But this is outrageous. I mean, 100 was the bill that said that they couldn't build new nuclear plants in California without a solution.
That we've done every bill that we have will be able to be overridden by the regional operator. Whatever agreement the regional operator agrees to, there was a lawsuit filed. The Supreme Court said regional operator can change its mind, his or her mind, whatever it is. Nothing that we put in our legislation will mean anything once we give up our rights to control our own energy. One of the arguments they make is that we could run out of it. We cannot run out of it. As Jennifer reminds us, we are the 4th largest economy in the world. We already have agreements with all the neighboring states to get energy from them. Usually they get energy from us. We do not need to join a regional group. And
Dorothy, this is
Dorothy,
this is a really good report. What's the timetable for this legislation? How much time is there to stop this?
Don't have a lot of time. PDA will be sending a letter out for people to call their state senators and stop this. The first committee that it's going to is Becker's committee, and he's the chair of it. So that's gonna pass through his committee, the Energy Committee. Then it's going to the Judiciary Committee, and we have to try to stop it there. If we can't stop it in the Senate, hopefully we can stop it in the Assembly. But this is an ongoing fight, and we have to stop it. We don't have a choice. I will get more information to Harvey to get to you and to PDA. This is all hands on deck. Henry Stern said to me, well, why aren't you working on all these other bills? And I said, Jennifer, what about these other bills? She said, it doesn't matter. If they pass this, no other bill will mean anything. We can pass all the bills we want. We're turning our energy future over to Donald Trump.
It sounds horrible. It sounds horrible, Dorothy.
Destroy California. That's
Dorothy, I think we've got the gist of it. Does anybody need any more clarification? Because this is a horror power grab. This is literally a power grab to take the democratic rights of the people of California, and I guess the rest of this regional compact, to subvert their legislatures, subvert their local laws and the popular will, and hand it over to some probably unelected bureaucrats, similar to like the NAFTA and the TPP and these other cockamamie trade deals that aren't really about trade. They're about disenfranchising the American people.
Right. Well, we have Kevin Kamps with us, Dorothy. Kevin is an expert on much of this. He's working in the Midwest now on Palisades, but certainly is aware of what is happening in California. Kevin, do you want to jump in here?
Hey,
Kevin,
everybody. Greetings.
Hi, Kevin.
The radioactive Rust Belt. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'll just say a few words about Palisades. I've talked in past shows about it. We are fighting unprecedented restart of a closed for good reactor. The precedent's now being followed at other places like 3 Mile Island and Duane Arnold, and even Diablo and Summer are closely related. I've put a bunch of chat links in so you can check those out. Some recent developments include the Trump administration, President Trump issuing executive orders that would appear to try to nullify state laws against such things as nuclear waste dumps. So directly relevant to Texas and New Mexico, where we've been battling non-consent based and environmentally unjust dumps for high-level radioactive waste for a decade or more. We've taken it all the way to the Supreme Court, our fight. Another executive order just issued by President Trump would seem to attempt to nullify all nuclear regulations within a year or 5 years after September 30th, 2025, if I'm understanding it correctly. And this is in addition to earlier attempts by President Trump and company to nullify the National Environmental Policy Act, its Council on Environmental Quality implementing regulations. So it's kind of a all-out attack on any notion of nuclear power regulation whatsoever. That said, of course, those of you who've heard all of us talking over the years about the Nuclear Regulatory Commission know that it doesn't regulate safety. But here is Trump attempting to just do away with any pretense whatsoever of nuclear power regulation. So we're really up against it, but we continue to fight at Palisades. We're in the licensing proceedings. We want to get to federal court to appeal the NRC's bad rulings on our intervention. And that's something of an update. The one thing I'll say about the money, because Harvey advertised it for the show, the grand total of public bailouts that Holtec International is seeking just at the Palisades nuclear power plant in Michigan on the Lake Michigan shoreline is $16 billion, 16 billion with a B dollars, mostly federal taxpayer, but also state taxpayer, and also electric ratepayer bailouts, half of it for the unprecedented restart, half of it for 2 so-called small modular reactors that aren't small at all. The 2 would double the nuclear megawattage on the site. So that's my summary, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Well, the small reactors, they're also talking about lifting the ban in California, it dates back to the 70s, on building any new nuclear plants until the waste issue is solved. And it still obviously hasn't been solved. And it's, in fact, small reactors, as planned, they don't exist yet, but as planned, produce more waste per kilowatt hour than the current models. And so the geniuses here in California are talking about building small reactors once they lift the ban on any reactors at all. But the bottom line here is that renewable energy continues to be ever cheaper than nuclear. The progress, much as they've tried, the progress of solar and wind and geothermal to be cheaper than ever continues unabated. Every year, renewables get cheaper, and every year, nuclear gets more expensive. And that they're not able to legislate against, at least not so far. So, in California, Newsom's betrayal of the shutdown bill of 2018 has imposed overmarket charges related to Diablo Canyon of $11 billion, which are paid by everybody in the state, even by people that get no electricity at all from Diablo Canyon. And the numbers in Michigan, Michigan, the whole state, like Ohio, by the way, could be entirely powered by wind power in a very short period of time, much, much cheaper, no radioactive waste, none of that stuff. And yet, here are these so-called market Republicans. We've been hearing about markets since many of us grew up, and Republicans are always believing in the free market. That's the last thing they believe in now. I mean, if we had a free market in energy, all the reactors and all the coal burners would shut immediately, followed soon thereafter by the gas burner. So here we are, and the idea of resurrecting a turkey like Palisades in strict economic terms, forget about the rest of it. Completely insane, right, Kevin? I mean, Kevin can if we were dealing with market, if we were dealing with market forces at Palisades, would there be any reason to keep it open, same as at Diablo Canyon?
I just put it in the chat, a report by Georgia Wand and Nuclear Watch South about the finances at Vogtle 3 and 4, the most recently added reactors in this country. The final price tag, although it's still going up, is something like $36.8 billion for 2 reactors.
Right.
The initial estimate by the Nuclear Energy Institute was $2.5 billion per reactor, total of $5 billion for that site. It's actually over $35 billion. And then that was in 2001. By 2012, Southern Company, Georgia Power estimated they'd cost $7.5 billion each, $15 billion altogether. So you can see this nuclear power cost escalation factor in the real world. The most recent examples in the United States, and like Harvey said, with small modular reactors, so-called, just about every metric you can think of, whether it's radioactive waste generation, thermal waste generation, price per kilowatt hour, is going to be worse than the current reactors because of loss of economy of scale. That's why they tried to build the gigantic ones, to try to recoup economy of scale and cost savings. The SMRs are going to do the opposite of that.
Yeah, we call them silly mythological ripoffs, it's insane. Someone had a hand. Lee Felsenstein.
Can I say something really quick?
There's Dorothy, yes.
In High Country News. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that publication.
Yeah.
And they have an article, "Is the nuclear renaissance coming?" They, of course, are not in favor of this, but they're just telling us what's happening. Nuclear reactors that'll fit on the back of a truck. And they have a list of all the states and what's happening in all the states.
Yeah, High Country News is a good source. It's the bottom line is that for decades now, the numbers have been on our side. Nowhere on this planet is it cheaper to build nuclear than it is to build solar or wind or geothermal. There's arguments on birds with wind, which have to be dealt with. There's certainly arguments about lithium in batteries, as we've learned at Moss Landing, that have to be dealt with. But the bottom line remains that nowhere on this planet are fossil fuels or nuclear power competitive with wind or solar. And it is true that in the United States and in the world as a whole, right now, we get more electricity from wind, solar, and geothermal combined than we do from either nuclear or from coal. I mean, that's out of the barn. And China, of course, China is building more nuclear plants than anybody else, but that number is going down. And if you look at the megawattage that they've bringing online every year of solar in China versus nuclear, it's not even close. And worldwide, it's not even close. So this last ditch effort to hold on to nuclear is beyond insane. And none of the reactors on this planet, by the way, there are over 400. There's 93, 94 in the US. None of them are insured against a major disaster.
Well,
And they're having
Sluggo,
issues now in LA as a result of these fires. People are being screwed on their insurance. Think what would happen, God forbid, in the wake of a radioactive cloud.
Sluggo, it's not insane. It's just obsessive need for fissionable material for nuclear weapons. And it doesn't matter what it costs. It's all about being able to bomb the hell out of cities and destroy cities. That's the insanity of it. It's the same insanity that drives the military budget in general, but it's not about being cost effective, and it's not even about meeting power needs. It's simply about meeting the desire to intimidate other countries with nuclear weapons.
Right. It's also about corporate control. You have to remember, nuclear power is the energy equivalent of fascism. It's corporate controlled. It allows control of the public. And the thing that freaks out the utility industry the most is that rooftop solar can be controlled by homeowners, and that means the end of the utility industry, and that's what they're desperately opposing. MYLA RESON, go ahead. Thank you, Mike.
I have a question for Kevin and Harvey. And let me just preface it by saying that I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico for years, and I believed for many years that I was not downwind from Los Alamos National Labs until one year there was a big fire at the lab, and Santa Fe was covered with the smoke from the fire. And I thought, oh my goodness, turns out I have been downwind all this time.
Well, you know who knows?
Let me just say that so I'm wondering.
You know who knows a lot about that is Joe Mangano. Joe has been the major pioneer of epidemiological studies, and the big one, the big cover up right from the get-go was Trinity. The nuclear tests we saw in the movie Oppenheimer, and they never talked about the radiation that went all over the region, including Santa Fe, did have epidemiological traceable health impacts, right, Joe Mangano?
Yeah, Bob Alvarez.
And Joe, after you speak, there's another part to what I was going to say. So go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say that it was ignored for quite a long time. Ernest Sternglass, co-founder of our group, did a small study about it. But several years ago, Bob Alvarez and his late wife, Kitty Tucker, published an article about the changes in infant mortality I think the 6 months after Trinity in New Mexico. It was large. It was large. And then the year after that, it came back down because it was only one blast. Yes, right. Starting with Trinity, we knew that there were health consequences.
And Kevin Kamps, who's worked alongside me and many others on the health impacts of 3 Mile Island, is very well aware that that there are serious health impacts in central Pennsylvania. Kevin, and then we'll go back to Joe. Has there ever been a
Myla had to finish her question?
I'm sorry, there was just a little bit more to this.
Yeah, go ahead.
You brought up whether or not being downwind was that I saw. I had an opportunity to have a really nice talk with Ro Khanna, the congressman who represents the area where Stanford is, and I mentioned. I said to him, well, we'd really like to get Diablo closed, and we'd like your help on it. Because the area that you represent is downwind. And then I looked at a map and I saw, well, we kind of presume that the people who are north of Diablo are not downwind and the people who are south are downwind. And But Ro Khanna said to me, well, it's a state issue. The federal government has nothing to do with nuclear power plants.
Oh my God.
Right. So
this is a congressman.
So he was very cordial and polite and interested in learning about the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, that federal agency that he was unaware of. Anyway, I just wanted to tie that all together when I realized that I had said they're downwind, and he said he would look into it, and he was very kind. That my question was about, well, is Stanford downwind from Diablo? If Diablo were to blow up, I'm sure that the people north of the facility would also be impacted. That's the question.
Well, as we saw at 3 Mile Island and at Fukushima and certainly at Chernobyl, eventually everywhere is downwind. I mean, when nuclear radiation goes up from a nuclear power plant, eventually it goes 360. I mean, the prevailing winds in central Pennsylvania during the accident should have been coming from the northwest. And in fact, they went northwest for at least part of the few hours after 3 Mile Island. So, ultimately it all goes everywhere. Chernobyl, they detected radiation north of San Francisco within 2 weeks, and then across the entire United States. So, Kevin, very briefly, and then we'll go back to Joe, who has another issue here. Is there anybody ever done an epidemiological study around Palisades of the cancer rates?
Yeah, Joe has. Joe's done one in
right.
2013.
And only because Kevin asked me to.
Can I just say real quick, in addition to downwind, and the wind blows wherever the wind blows, like Harvey said, Chernobyl's fallout blew all over Europe in circles, time and again, these figure eights. So it comes down with rain and snow or just gravity. So there is downwind in every direction, but there's also downstream, and there's also up the food chain, and there's also down the generations, because depending on the isotope, we're not talking a snapshot of a few days. We're talking it moves around. And at Chernobyl, the wildfires that have happened for the past decades have moved it around again. So as has been said, there are start dates for nuclear catastrophes. There really are not end dates.
Would you be mad as someone?
Okay, someone else is speaking there. But Joe Mangano, you have a project to present a proposed health study to Robert Kennedy.
Oh, thanks.
Can you talk about that?
Okay, we've spoken about it before. I'm going to do this very delicately. The idea first came from you, Harvey. And you called me up one day and said, let's put politics aside for a second. Like Robert Kennedy or dislike, he does have a record as an environmental advocate and as an anti-nuclear advocate. His group Riverkeeper was instrumental in getting Indian Point shut down. And you have to put that in perspective because historically, the federal government has really been completely disinterested in doing any sort of evaluations of cancer or health near reactors. There's only been one national study of cancer, and that was done, ironically, at the insistence of Senator Ted Kennedy in the late 1980s. There have been none since. There was a proposal by the NRC, which they later scrapped 7 years later, that from 2019 to 2016. So the thought was this, that a short list of scientists who have been involved in studying radioactivity and the health effects in the United States would prepare a short, you could call it a proposal or a letter, and get it sent directly to Robert Kennedy, bringing up the issue that this kind of a study is very, very, very much needed. Since we first spoke, Harvey, I have collected a list of, well, if you include me, 5 scientists that are interested in participating. The other 4 are university based, and there's a 6th that I'm still trying to get. The issue now will be to who's going to write the brief proposal, what's going to be in it, and who is going to be the delivery person to Robert Kennedy. Of course, I'd like to hear everyone's opinion about it, but the general issue is we have nothing to lose here. Again, this has been an issue completely not interested. And I want to add to that. I'm going to put it on the chat line. There is a professor, Harvard School of Public Health, who for the past year has been doing two studies actually of cancer near three nuclear plants in New England. Two of them ironically closed, Pilgrim, Vermont Yankee, and third being Seabrook. This was self-funded, according to the articles. $20,000 was taken from Harvard University, which is hopeful if in fact this is an objective study. That's all I have to say. Harvey, you want to take it from here? You add something?
Well, so we've been talking, as Ted Kennedy was the senator, I actually met him, who raised the possibility of doing a systematic study of the health impacts of atomic power plants over the past 70 years. And it's when you think about it, how could any sane society possibly deploy a technology with the reach of atomic power and not study its impact on the health of the neighbors? I mean, it's a no-brainer that you should never do that, especially if the reactors are not insured. And I have been in debates where nuclear proponents say, well, there's no evidence that nuclear power has ever harmed anybody. And, if you don't look for it, you're certainly not going to find it.
And Harvey, once again, it comes down to money. Our group for the last 30 something, almost 40 years has been addressing this issue, but we are small. We have, published 41 peer-reviewed journal articles on topics such as thyroid cancer near Indian Point or total cancers near the Salem plant and so on. This is just sort of chipping away at it. What's really needed is a much larger study, a much larger overview, especially now that we have a number of plants that are over 50 years old.
Right.
What I found is the older a plant gets, the higher the cancer rate gets.
So where have you found that? How many reactors can you say that of?
Yeah, 16 of them, and I'll post. It's on our website, and I'll post it. It's kind of it's better than a back of the napkin thing, but it hasn't been peer reviewed and published yet. But yeah, I took the 16 of the oldest nuclear plants in the country and looked at their cancer death rates compared to the U.S. over 3 time periods. Let's call them as the plant started up, early in operation and later in operation. And
it gets worse, right?
It most certainly gets worse.
Okay. Kevin, have you at NIRS, have you run into any sort of usable health data?
Well, I just put it in the chat. There's reports from residents of the Palisades Park Country Club, which is a resort community immediately south of Palisades, that there are 50 thyroid cancers diagnosed in that community. There shouldn't be a single case of thyroid cancer in such a small community, which is also a part-time. People come from Chicago and other places to stay there in the summertime for short periods. So that would indicate that there was a major release or an ongoing release of such radioisotopes as iodine-131, cesium-134, cesium-137, which would come from fuel damage in the core that has never been reported at Palisades. So something's rotten in Denmark.
Well, Denmark doesn't have any nuclear plants, but certainly Sweden does, and there's one right next to the border with Denmark. But this is an ongoing issue, and as I say, the nuclear industry is trying to, pull out all the stops. I will say there's only one country in the world that's building more than 10 or even more than 5 atomic reactors, and that's China. But China's output of new renewables, especially solar, dwarfs what's coming from nuclear. And I believe that they have been gradually canceling reactor projects that are in the pipeline. What's really infuriating here in America, you had in South Carolina 2 reactors being built at VC Summer that were canceled, $9 billion. For $9 billion, it was totally down the drain. Oh, they're talking about reviving that project. They're out of their minds. For $9 billion, you could have solarized much of South Carolina. And for the $36 billion they spent at Vogtle, probably all of Georgia. And there is one instance, and Mimi, maybe if you're still on, at the Hanford site in Washington State, the feds are talking about building a giant solar array with about $4 billion, which would cover, I think, 2 or 3 or 4 gigawatts of power. I mean, it's a very, very large facility with, and the price tag is minuscule compared to what it would be for comparable nuclear plant. Have you, either you, Joe, or you, Kevin, followed that one? No. Okay.
No, I haven't.
Okay. So here we are in California now. We are desperately trying. California, which had the most progressive and most promising solar conversion going on, it's not Donald Trump. It's Gavin Newsom, who has completely stabbed us in the back here. We had an agreement in 2018 to shut Diablo Canyon in 24 and 25 and to phase in renewable energy at a much reduced cost. And instead, Newsom killed it, or at least put it in abeyance in 22. And we now have the second highest electric rates in America. And now they want to build more. Somebody wants to build more nuclear plants. So do you want to comment on that in terms of the bigger picture, Kevin? And then Joe, if you'll give us your final assessment on the health studies, and then we're going to move on to go back to Trump and the stock market, which we really need to discuss. Go ahead, Kevin. Kevin, can you hear
Just
me?
wanted to emphasize in the Vogel Truth Report that I shared in the chat, there's a really shocking figure about the number of disconnections that have been carried out by Southern Nuclear and Georgia Power. It's approaching 10% of the ratepayers in the service area. It's people who can't afford to pay their electric bills because they're getting gouged by these companies to pay for the financing on the Vogel units 3 and 4 new build. And that's in addition to $12 billion in federal taxpayer-backed nuclear loan guarantees. So in addition to all the safety risks, these are monetary crimes, but they're legalized.
Yeah, and we should point out that the initial $8.3 billion government loan for the Vogtle reactor, the 2 reactors of Vogtle, came from Obama. It was Obama's idea, with his all of the above BS, to fund Vogtle in the beginning, which is as big a financial catastrophe as the United States has ever suffered, $36 billion. And the first the reactors would not have happened without Obama. And then Trump added, what was it, 3.7 billion. So a third of the reactors at Vogtle come from federal money. And now, it's a disaster economically. And 16 billion in Michigan to revive Palisades. That's insane.
Well, $8 billion to restart the old reactor and $7.5 billion to build 2 SMRs. So yeah, $16 billion altogether.
Well, you heard it here first. Joe Mangano, do you want to tell us what your next step is on the health impacts? And then we're going to talk about Trump and the stock market and the global economy really quickly, and also the purge within the federal government. Joe?
Yeah, I'll just mention that the report I just put up on the chat of the 16 oldest plants. Very simply, the local rates in the late 60s, early 70s, as they were being opened, where the cancer rate was 6% below the U.S. At the 20-year mark of operation, it had become even to the U.S., and that now, most recently, is 6% above. So going from 6% below to above. These 16 counties where they're located have about 1.3 million people, and the excess cancers is around 9,000. Now, this is any indication of how badly our people are getting harmed. The numbers are much higher, especially as plants get older and other plants hit the 40 and 50-year mark. And I should add too that there were 9,000 excess cancer deaths. There were 20,000 total deaths. There are other increases in other causes of death. And I'm not talking about accident or homicide or suicide, but medical causes. We can't discount that as well. So the need for a comprehensive study is urgent. And I say that we have nothing to lose by going to Robert Kennedy.
Well, okay. Good luck with that. I will say, yeah.
Paul Newman has a question.
Paul, go ahead, please. Paul Newman, are you unmuted?
Now I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Go ahead.
You were going to segue into the financial situation in the stock market, but this is also related to what you're talking about. And I believe, as you know, cryptocurrency requires a lot of energy. And I think if some of these Silicon Valley companies want to use nuclear power plants, but their idea of what they think is safe nuclear power plants that are smaller, but to run their cryptocurrency operations.
Yes, and it's completely wacky. If you look at anything having to do with these small reactors, it's completely impractical. I mean, they've already failed. The first company, NuScale, which got a license to build small reactors, their projected costs per kilowatt hour just went straight up before they even came close to producing a reactor, and their time frames have stretched out by years. Like I say, the renewables are just continuing to boom. And the United States is going to be pretty much alone in this. Like I say, the Chinese are building some reactors, but the number has been dropping and it's dwarfed by renewables. No one else on Earth, is building any with any great diligence. There's two under construction in Great Britain. They're just finishing one up in France, which cost them an arm and a leg. Same in Finland. And the only people wanting to export reactors at this point are, you guessed it, Russia. So, and there's no indication that's going to move ahead with any kind of economic reality either. Mike Hurst, and then we want to talk about the stock market. Thank you for that, Paul.
Yeah, I think that we can summarize this for anybody who feels kind of overwhelmed with all these details, that we've got a lot of old nuclear plants. They get less safe as they get older, more likely to melt down, and more likely to leak. There's no such thing as a safe nuclear power plant, period. They're uninsurable, they're unsafe, they're not financially or economically feasible. They are being used, Sluggo, you made a very good point, because they're centrally controllable and they can be used to dictate policies to people. And I also think that China might be using nuclear power plants to fuel their own nuclear arsenal, because there's no other explanation that makes sense. I don't think that these people who are doing this are insane. I don't think that they can use an insanity defense in court if something goes wrong. I think that the entire context of using nuclear weapons is insane and unsustainable and very dangerous to all human life on the planet. So I think that somebody summed it up in two simple words: no nukes.
There you go. Well, the nuclear weapons, then we'll jump into the stock market here. Nuclear weapons basically are matches being thrown in a room full of gasoline. There's nowhere the Earth survives a nuclear war. Well, the Earth will survive, but human existence on an Earth will not survive a nuclear war. Okay, we're down to the last. Thank you for that, Mike. We're down to the last few minutes here. I do want to talk about what's on many people's minds, certainly in the media, is the state of the economy, and especially most visibly the stock market. And I don't know how many of you picked it up, but Rachel Maddow has been very good at this. She's very astute. And when the market first was crashing because of the tariffs that Trump was throwing around up and down, what really grabbed the world financial markets was not so much the stock markets as T-bills. And I'm sure many of us who are not in the financial world are not so aware of T-bills, treasury bills, government bonds. But for many decades, certainly since World War II, U.S. government bonds, treasury bills, have been the go-to reality, along with gold, I guess, for a stable global economy. And what people in the business noticed and were freaked out about most was not the stock market going down, but was a loss of confidence in T-bills, which is apparently very significant. And I don't know enough about global economic manipulations to know much more beyond what I've read in it. But there are those who believe that Trump backed off on the tariffs, not because of the stock market, but because T-bills got really shaky. And so we're all students here. There's still 59 of us. We are the a Zoom call with the longest attention span. But the reality is that I think going forward, those of us who are following this need to watch the reporting on the T-bills, because the treasuries went up in return, which meant that they became less a worthwhile investment. And what's happening, as best I can tell, is that Trump is shaking the confidence of global investors in the American economy. And with that comes a questioning of the dollar. Because, our prosperity in this country has been pegged to the stability of treasury bills and the stability of the U.S. dollar. And what he has done now is call both into question. So the question then is, are we heading into a depression? And the answer, if you look at the stability or the instability that's being caused here in the dollar and in T-bills, that's where the real action. And so it's just an advisory. I don't have any great expertise in this, but I do know what I've read. And the first one I really saw it from was Rachel Maddow, and she gave a very, very coherent explanation. So the other thing I want to raise, Lynn Feinerman, you want to jump in, and then I want to talk about the manipulation of the stock market, which is also significant, and the real motivation behind the purge of federal employees. But go ahead, Lynn, please, and then we'll talk about those.
It's a question.
Yeah.
I have been looking at this T-bill matter myself, and I wonder, is it simply that the world is turning away from T-bills, that the global investment in T-bills is destabilizing that particular corner of the market?
The attraction of investing in T-bills was not necessarily the return, which has never been that high, but the stability of the U.S. government and the ability, the confidence that mega investors, and these aren't even MAGA people, these are mega people, the confidence that very, very wealthy people and institutions will have on the ability of the U.S. government to repay their investment. There has been, since World War II, no more stable investment with any kind of return than a T-bill, because that people have had worldwide unshakable faith in the full faith and credit of the United States government.
But if that's, then we're all de-iced, because the full faith and credit of the U.S. government also covers the FDIC insurance, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the reality that the world is looking at now is that we have at the head of our national corporation, i.e. the U.S. government, a guy who went bankrupt 6 times, and who, if you read his latest statements to the Dodgers and whoever else, this guy is not sane. And would you invest in a corporation, or would you trust your nest egg and your corporation, your multi-billions, your trillions in a corporation run by Donald Trump? That's what the world is asking. And as Americans, whatever our politics are, we're still part of the American economy. And what Trump has succeeded in doing is shaking, not just with the tariffs, but the tariffs were the lead item here, shaking the confidence of the global financial market in the ability of the United States government to reliably repay investments in bonds. That's what we're looking at as best I can tell. Mike, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, the bond market is extremely important, as you're saying, Sluggo, and people do not normally talk about it or think about it. The confidence of the people who have the wherewithal to invest in these treasury securities, they're very economically powerful, very economically influential. And the mechanism, the way this works is when the United States spends more money than it takes in, which it does, every quarter, they have to put these treasury securities up for auction. And what they do is they say, we want to borrow money from the world market, from anybody who has enough money to invest in these things. And we only want to pay 1% interest. And they put these things on the market. And if they don't sell with 1% interest, they have to pay a higher interest rate. And as that interest rate goes up, as you were saying, and as Rachel Maddow was explaining, the existing treasury bills, if they have a 1% return, they decrease in value so that they end up having the same return, whatever the going rate is. So it's just like if you go to a car dealer or a bank and you want a loan and you want the lowest interest you can get, but the person making the loan, the bank or whoever, looks at your credit rating and says, no, you're going to have to pay X amount. And the worse your credit rating is, the higher you're going to have to pay.
Right.
Trump is screwing with our credit rating. And what that's causing is us to have to pay more in interest because people don't have the same faith that Trump is going to be able to guide the country in a way that interest rates aren't going to have to spike upward. And the tariffs are a huge part of it because tariffs are extremely inflationary. And when inflation goes up, the Federal Reserve Board will raise interest rates in an effort to control that. And so people are smart if they have a lot of money or they go to a money manager and they tell them, don't get a treasury bill unless you get a nice big interest rate on it, because inflation is going to eat up all the value of it. And as interest rates go up, your treasury bills are going to go down in value.
Right. And the question now we're facing, since World War II, there's been no real global competitor with the U.S. as a safe haven for investment. The question now is, who are you going to invest in first, Trump or Xi? I mean, look at the Chinese, not only the Chinese economy, but BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and somebody else. I'm missing a country here, but as a global financier, people are starting to say, well, should we bank our money with the U.S. or should we bank our money with BRICS and or China? And that's a serious consideration. Now, one thing I do want to raise here, we're almost to the top of the hour, we'll go to 4:20, is what really happens with his manipulation of the tariffs. If Donald Trump, and of course he would never do this, it would be considered immoral. If Donald Trump had decided to give a couple of his buddies a heads up that he was going to raise tariffs, which he knew would, 100% would plunge the market, he could tell a buddy, say Elon Musk or Jeffrey, what's his name, or the guy from the guys from Silicon Valley, if he gave them even a 10-minute heads up that he was about to raise tariffs through the roof, they could make billions because they would short sell a plunging market. And, that kind of insider information is worth, more money than God. And then the same again. If he gave friends of his a heads up that he was going to take the tariffs off for 90 days, they would know immediately that the market was going to jump back up. And again, that would birth billions of dollars insider trading. So, of course, none of us believes that Donald Trump would be immoral enough to do that. But the bottom line is certainly the opportunity was there. And if we're, on the one hand, you can say, oh, he's crazy and all this stuff. But on the other hand, if he had his own money, through Jared or whoever else playing those two known, jumps and drops, he could have made billions of dollars, trillions of dollars, literally, knowing in 10 minutes in advance what he was going to do with his tariffs. That has to be raised. Tatanka, go ahead and then Lynn.
Yeah, well, one explanation, which does make a certain amount of sense, which is like Kissinger's mad Nixon theory, but at another level. On this level, it's that he hasn't just gone crazy with the tariffs, and it won't just happen one time, but this action for however long it takes of creating instability, which means market volatility, which means possibility of maximum insider trading, is the reason for it in a certain period of time to get the billions and trillions into the hands of the specific institutions and billionaires that he owes and that owe him, and people that he wants to put in place to do his worldwide domination scheme. A completely unscientific thing. I had a dream last night, and in the middle of the dream, I asked, there was something about a naked woman being the sign for something. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, Donald Trump has an ad agency which has a particular scene in a casino with a above the waist naked woman, and that all his people on the inside list during a certain period of time, 24/7, are to stay tuned on this particular channel, which I didn't get. And whenever that shows, that's the sign to either buy or sell.
Oh, all right. That's an interesting dream, and you should run that by your broker.
Yeah, well, no, it's good for a novel, but
Okay.
sometimes the things that you think are only good for novels are actually
Right.
serving another purpose.
Lynn Feinerman, and then I want to raise one more question about Musk's purges.
Yeah,
here.
I'm segueing right from to we haven't really nailed that the rump just shorted the stock market as crony. I mean, and I think that's what Tatanka's dream is all about, and I wouldn't put it past his dream to be actually quite accurate. But anyway, what he did was he shorted the market. I mean, he even came out and said, buy now, buy now. I mean, he wasn't, he didn't need any naked lady. I mean, it was right out there, up front. And so, I think that we're looking at somebody who is absolutely without any kind of, I don't know why he pulled back on his maniac.
Well, but it took the market the other way. Look at how much money you could have made. If you knew 10 minutes in advance that he was going to pull those tariffs, you could have bet $1 billion and come out with $100 billion. I mean, that it's a Las Vegas move, if you in some ways, don't you think? And Lee Felsenstein?
Absolutely.
Harvey,
Yes,
you were
Lee.
paying attention to the news. He boasted about how much money his buddies made right after he made that announcement.
Well, I missed that.
Yeah.
Well, and how much the rest of us lost. Well, not me. I'm not in the market, but what the hell? Dorothy Reich, and then we'll go back to Tatanka, and then Robert. Let's get you unmuted. Dorothy, go ahead. I'm trying to unmute you. There.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually sold treasuries and bought stocks.
Do we know that?
Yeah, it was in it was in New York Times or Washington. Yeah.
So she must have known what he was going to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So that'll fund her next campaign for governor or senator. I think she's going to run for
We
senate.
need to outlaw individual stock trades by elected officials, and they can't get it done because they're all making too much.
Exactly. I do want to mention one other thing. The purges that Musk and Bobby Kennedy, who fired 10,000 people, and these other purges, they're all, there's nothing about efficiency in there. This is all meant to clean out the government apparatus so that it can be filled with actual,
morons.
What's that?
Actual morons.
Well, but operatives, functional, people who are, Hitler did the same
Up to
thing.
700 measles cases.
And Andrew Jackson did the same thing. Andrew Jackson, they hated the civil service. He filled it with his own people. It's called the spoils system. So when Musk goes in and says he's going to save money, it's not about saving money. It's about opening the government for control at all levels.
What they're going to do is they're going to fire people, and then they're going to make everybody contract labor, and their people are going to be the contractors who provide the labor.
Right.
People will get paid less. They'll have they have health insurance at all. It won't be good. And it'll cost us the same, because the difference between what the contract labor is going to get paid and what the government's going to get charged by the contractors Trump's friends, the difference, that's their profit. So we're not going to save any money, but Trump's guys will make the spread.
Right. And they also have their own people in those positions. And this is,
They'll
this
have much less job security or anything, so they'll be much more pliable.
You're absolutely right, Dorothy. We've got 3 other people who need to get in.
Sorry.
Thank you, Dorothy. You're right on all counts.
Take a
We'll
big-
go back to Tatanka, and then who else had a hand raised? I'm missing
We've got
here.
we've got Robert and Nicole.
Okay, Tatanka, Robert,
Yeah.
and Nicole.
Does anyone, Lynn, Nancy, Mike, Dorothy, anybody have any update or any confidence at all that the desire for the Congress to get into this insider trading, which was immediate, is there any update on that? Is there any effectiveness, or do we just try to get Vegas to lay odds on how effective it'll be and then go gamble?
Elizabeth Warren is asking for an investigation. That's about as far as they got. So
Yeah.
It's really something else. Also, by the way, the MAGA movement is taking major steps now to retract the vote from women by putting all sorts of barriers in front of people who've changed their names, i.e., women who got married and changed their name. They're now going to have to present a birth certificate and a passport to
marriage
get
or a marriage certificate.
Right. So, or a certificate of divorce, I guess. But, so the move against women voting, which people have laughed about, is actually very, very tangible.
Ian said that he didn't want women who didn't have children shouldn't be able to vote anyway.
Right, exactly. Well, I think he said women who haven't had children by him. Okay.
Now that's Musk.
Oh yeah.
Musk kids are they're all IVF kids too.
Yeah.
That's why there's triplets and
Okay, we've got Robert, Nicole, and
Lynn. And then we're almost out of time. Once again, we have 53 people with us. Just you people have amazing stamina. Robert, go ahead, and then Nicole, and then Lynn.
Thank
and
you.
by the way, I got to make sure we're not meeting for the next 2 weeks. Our next meeting is May 5th. So next 2 weeks we will not be convening. But go ahead, Robert, Nicole, and Lynn. Robert?
Thank you. It's always interesting to be in part of these conversations.
We haven't been deported by them.
Dorothy, please.
Go ahead.
Love you, but we got to get through this.
Okay, Robert, go ahead.
I basically want to express my distress that there don't seem to be any adults in the room. We are a great country of 300 million people, and yet we complain that this one man can get away with all of the things he can get away with. It seems to me that this can be brought to an end, and I'm not sure quite how to do it, but I am ready and willing to support anyone who can show me. But there has to be some adults in the room. We can't be just depending on rumors and possibilities and Las Vegas. That's
wonderful. Thanks, Robert. Good stuff.
It is good stuff. Thank you, Robert. And by the way, how old are you? Sorry. Nicole, and then Lynn.
Hi.
And then David.
Yes, to answer this last question, Congressman Raskin said that the judge that has their orders not followed, he can give fines and sentences to those government people that do not follow it. So, and those sentences cannot be pardoned. So that's one way we could do that. And also, I saw, the patriotic millionaires. They have a whole list of things that they could do. They had like a 4-hour program about several days ago. And also, Amnesty International has just put out a petition asking the Congresses to not fund that prison in the bill, so that, and now that he's thinking of using those prisons to put American citizens, it's even the more important that we ask our congressmen not to support the funding of those prisons in Guatemala, I think, whatever that country
El
is.
Salvador,
El
but that's a good
Salvador.
one.
El Salvador.
Haven't
Yeah,
heard
and
that raised.
Thanks
That's
so
good.
much, Nicole. That's great stuff.
one more, if
one
I
more.
may. Yeah, there's a rumor that Baron Trump has boasted to his classmate in that morning that he made from 1 million, he made 33 million from that tariff turnaround.
Yeah, well, at least he's not Hunter Biden with a laptop, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. Great stuff.
Lynn Feinerman and then David Sonneborn.
Yeah, just a
We're
bit
almost
more,
out of time.
just a bit more specific response to Tatanka. Both Adam Schiff and Elizabeth Warren have initiated investigations, inquiries into Trump's manipulation of the markets and his selling short. We should try to support them in whatever ways we can. So
good stuff, Lynn.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Lynn has a wonderful radio show. Lynn, you want to give a shout out for your radio show real quick? Oh, she muted herself. We'll get her back.
I'm back.
Go ahead.
I'm
Go
back.
ahead, Lynn.
Women Rising Radio. The URL is www.womenrisingradio.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful show. And Dr. David Sonneborn, close us out.
Yes, okay. Have California people here gotten the information about the petition for California Fair Elections Act? Is that something that people here?
I haven't heard of it. Put it in the chat. What is it?
It's moving through the state legislature, SB 42, and what it would do is to to repeal the ban on public financing of election campaign. Really germane to this group. I could send you the petition, but I'm putting it in now. May 5th would still be plenty of time to get people on board for this.
All right, that sounds good. Thank you for that.
And real quick, both Steve Caruso and I dropped a donation link. We don't do fund drives here. We don't usually beg for money, but we're going to be off for a couple of weeks. So if you miss us, it'd be a good opportunity to give us a little bit of a gift, throw a little money in the tip jar, and keep us rocking and rolling.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Dorothy. Good to see you, Dr. Nancy. Everybody, your contributions have been fabulous. Does Steve Caruso, you got a hand there?
Yeah, this is a clip, and I can play it because it's our video, and if YouTube cracks down on that, I ask God to forgive them. But this is Tatanka from March 10th talking about what's happening, and it was really inspirational, so I had to take it out and show it to you. Hold on a second.
Let's see it. While you're doing that, Ruth Strauss mentioned the movie Far Out. If you have a group that can do a movie showing and raise some money for yourselves, we'll make the film available. It's called Far Out. I'll send you a trailer or a link. You can see the whole movie. Write me solartopia@gmail. SOLARTOPIA@gmail.com. We call it the Naked Hippie movie, but there really aren't that many naked hippies in there. Although it did look good back then. Dr. Nancy, go ahead while we're waiting for Tatanka's clip.
Yeah, my niece helped produce a movie. She's in New York about called The Encampments, and it just started at local Lemley's, free today and tomorrow. And it's about Columbia University student protests about investments in the arms to Israel. And apparently it's really good.
Okay, good. Anybody else have an announcement? Are we waiting for this, Steve, to load up?
It's loading up.
Okay.
A reminder,
So,
we're going to be off for 2 weeks. We're going to be back
May 5th, we're going to be back. And but I'm sure a ton will be happening between now and then. But for us in California, we've got to stop this nuclear madness. It's absolutely insane. And we're looking for a good candidate to run for governor who will pledge to shut Diablo Canyon as agreed in 2018. All we need to do is go back to the plan that was drafted in 2018.
Eddie Yee will agree to that.
What's that?
Eddie Yee will agree to that.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, let's get her to do that. We need a definite commitment. Those reactors have got to shut as soon as possible, and we got to stop paying the $11 billion that they're demanding to keep Diablo open. Here's the Go ahead.
They do not.
Oh, here we go.
Want to cauterize our hearts and our souls. They do not. They know the power of love and empathy. I mean, when we get to the next level of organizing, as you talk about it, that will be one of the characteristics of it. Because I believe that there is no separation in all the universe, is that solidarity is baked into our DNA. That we basically have to rid ourselves of the separation to experience the solidarity and empathy that has us reach in and answer our reason for incarnating, the reason we're here on earth. We reach into our souls and our hearts. I mean, that's what characterized the civil rights movement. Why people, each kids to old people, it's a good day to die. They want to cauterize our hearts and our souls. They do not. They know the power.
Okay, that was great. Thank you, Tatanka, for that. And again, I sometimes wonder if, we Americans, many of us now are thoroughly embarrassed by the leadership of this country. And I won't say we're ashamed to be Americans, but it's really, harder and harder. And you have to wonder, we've had some talk of ETs here. You wonder if a foreign alien outer space intelligent beings came to this planet and saw these guys who were in power, what would they think of our species? And would they allow us to continue? Just a thought out there. Yeah, they want to
Watch
cleanse the universe of our species. God help us.
Watch Mars Attacks again.
Yeah, right. Mars Attacks. Okay, you guys. Steve Caruso, did you want to jump in, or are we good to go? Thank you, everybody out in Radio Land. We will be back May 5th, but we'll have a show next week also. I'll get a show up there at PRN and at Pacifica. And everybody, it's been great. 46 still with us. And in 3 weeks, we will be back. And hopefully by then, we'll still have some kind of country. This will turn around. This too shall pass. And what a lesson that our country and our world is learning from all this. We grew up in a country that took a lot of stuff for granted. And, in the last, how long has he been in power? 30, 40 days. We have had to question everything, all the great stuff, freedom, press, equality, all these things that we have fought so hard for, that now they're trying to rid us of. Let's take appreciation of what we've had, and now we got to fight like hell to get it back and make it better. So hopefully these calls are helping. It's great, wonderful to be all with you, and we'll see you on May 5th. No nukes, everybody. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody. If it doesn't kill us, it'll make us stronger. There you go.
Hey,
or make
enough
us
of that.
limp around a little bit.
Yeah, and deepen our sense of humor and irony.